Hey friends, welcome to Manthan Physio Academy. Today we are going to understand a very simple and a short and interesting topic of neurophysiology, that is reflexes. So before I start the reflexes, let me give you an idea of 2-3 points which are very much important to understand before we start the actual concept of a reflex. So the point number 1, that reflexes are the protective mechanisms. So the point number 1, that is reflexes are protective mechanism. Second point is reflexes are involuntary. Point number 2, that is reflexes are involuntary. And the third point are reflexes are very spontaneous. Point number 3, that is reflexes are spontaneous. So the basic most thing, that is these 3 points. So now let's get started with the actual concept of a reflex. So as you see this diagram, so this particular area, that is, I have taken this thing as the hand. Let's suppose that there is a particular tissue and which is dissected from the hand. Particularly the cutaneous receptors are there. So hand and the cutaneous receptors. So in this diagram, these all are the receptors which are present over the palmar aspect of the hand. And from this, these nerve fibers, these are known as an efferent nerve fibers. Efferent nerve fibers. And the function of the efferent nerve fiber is to carry the sensation from periphery to the center. And the center which is present in the spinal cord. So this is the section of spinal cord, and from the spinal cord the efferent nerve fiber, so the efferent nerve fiber which carry the sensation away from the spinal cord. So this is the efferent nerve, and efferent nerve ends in the effector organ. So this is the effector organ. So as you can see that reflexes, they basically form a reflex arc. So here comes the concept, that is reflex arc, and this reflex arc consists of the 5 points. So the first thing is the receptors, that is the point number 1. Second point, that is efferent nerve. Third point, that is the center. So third point, that is center, point number 3. Fourth point, that is the efferent nerve. And the fifth point, that is effector organ. So reflex arc is basically consisting of the 5 of the components. So I have shown all the components. Now let's take an example and merge these 3 points with that particular example. So if this particular area of the hand, the palmar aspect of the hand, when it comes in contact with any hot object, so let me write it over here, that when it comes in contact with any hot object, so that particular sensation will be carried by the efferent nerve. But the first receiver, so first receiver of this particular sensation, that is the receptors which are present in the hand. So the receptors are the first receiver which receives the thermal sensation. Then it will be carried by the efferent nerve toward the center, or I can say to the spinal cord. From the spinal cord, sensations are again carried to the effector organ. So this effector organ, here we need to apply these 3 points, that it is a protective mechanism. Second thing is it is involuntary, and third is spontaneous. So all these 3 points combine over here, that when a hot object which comes in contact with the area of the hand, so immediately our hand is withdrawn from that area in order to protect it from burn. That is the point number 1. Second thing, it is involuntary, that the immediate withdrawal is noticed. So that is involuntary. And spontaneous, as soon as the receptor senses the particular sensation and it detects that this is the harmful object and it can damage and it can result into the irreparable damage of that particular tissue, whether it is a cutaneous receptors or any other thing, so the spontaneous response comes to the stimulus. To understand the stimulus, I have made a video on the action potential and how does the nerve impulse travel in a particular nerve fiber with the alteration in the cell membrane. So I recommend that you go and watch that video to understand the action potential in detail. Here in this video, we are mainly focusing on the reflexes. So that is the all diagram of the reflex arc as well as the example in which I can combine these 3 points. Second thing is, whenever we are assessing a patient in the clinics, to assess the reflexes, go layer wise. Means what? That the first number, that is, if I write it over here, that clinical portion. So in the clinical portion, go layer wise. First is superficial layer. Superficial. So in the superficial, you can stimulate the cutaneous receptors. So superficial, that is cutaneous. So when you elicit to the cutaneous receptors, you will get a reflex action. Second thing is deep. Again, go layer wise. Remember the thing, go layer wise. It is superficial, then comes deep. So as we know that it is a deep tendon reflexes. Tendons are situated deep to the adipose tissue as well as the cutaneous receptors. So when you stimulate the deep tendon reflexes, for example, the patellar tendon reflex, biceps tendon reflex, all are the examples of the deeper layer of reflexes. Third thing, that is visceral. Visceral. So to visceral, which means which is related with the organ. So stimulate the pupillary reflex, which is one of the example of a visceral, and the last one, that is pathological reflex. Fourth one, that is pathological. Pathological, so if I give you an idea of this pathological reflexes, basically it is out of the scope of this video, but pathological reflexes, they are actually present whenever any upper motor neuron or the lower motor neuron lesions are there. So I will explain in the further videos, but for now keep this thing in mind that the Babinski reflex, it is the example of a pathological reflex, that when you stimulate the sole of foot, the ankle which goes into the dorsiflexion and with the toes in the fanning position. So that is the pathological reflex. So these 4 things, the superficial, the deep, visceral and the pathological. So this is the clinical portion of the reflexes. So if you have any doubts in the concept of a reflex, you can write it in the comment section or you can mail me, and till then, do remember these things, keep learning, keep exploring. Thanks for subscribing and thanks for watching my video till end, and keep learning, keep exploring. Do like, share, subscribe and don't forget to hit that bell icon. Till then, thank you so much.